Hello and welcome. In this video, we are going to move beyond what is directly taught in the fourth way system regarding personality, essence, and real I. The reason is that these terms can quite easily be explained in a way that most people can understand. In essence, personality is all that we've acquired throughout this lifetime, such as most of our behavioral patterns, education, social conditioning, habits, likes, dislikes, opinions, attitudes, prejudices, roles, etc. It also includes your name, your language, what you've been told to believe, and the ideas picked up without question. Essence, on the other hand, is the core frequency that we carry with us through different lives. It is the signature of our being, individual to everyone, and yet much more closely connected to real I. This is a little harder to grasp, but can quite easily be understood through how it plays out. According to the fourth way teachings, each person begins life with essence. This is what you are born with, the part of you that belongs to your nature. It includes your raw potential, temperament, and natural responses. Essence is real, but undeveloped. It is neutral and sincere, though immature. If it could grow freely, it might allow you to live a more genuine life. But in ordinary conditions, essence does not develop fully. Instead, personality begins to form and overtake it. Essence, when it has been allowed to develop and we are in alignment with it, determines what energy we bring with us into different life circumstances, no matter if it is within the family, workplace, or as actors on the world stage. When we are fully aligned with our essence, we will carry the same frequency, no matter what circumstances we find ourselves in. But if we're not, different part personalities, what in the fourth way is referred to as little I's, will take over depending on what is happening in the external reality. More on this in a moment. Real I, finally, is our eternal connection with Source, or God, if that term doesn't carry too much baggage for you. We're not talking about an old judgmental man with a white beard, but the infinite, eternal, intelligent, loving consciousness that we are all part of. This real I is the only constant here, the only thing within us that never changes. Everything else, including our essence, is subject to the law of constant motion. Before we go on, it is noted that what is discussed in this video with regards to real I deviates from how Gurdjieff saw real I and is closer to how Maurice Nicole, one of Gurdjieff's students, described it. Now, let's delve a bit deeper into the topic at hand. Over time, personality grows over essence like a mask. It becomes the part of you that engages with the world. While personality is not inherently negative, it is artificial and shaped by things outside of you. It does not reflect inner truth. Most of what is called I in daily life comes from personality. And yet, this outer layer gives the illusion of being the whole of who you are, because it's the part that reacts, speaks, and presents itself to others. As was touched upon earlier, you don't have a unified self. You assume you are one, but in fact, you are made up of many small conflicting parts. These parts are referred to as I's. One moment you are one thing, the next you are something else. There is no central authority within. Instead, a different I speaks each time, depending on mood or circumstance. This creates confusion and instability. You say, "I want something," and an hour later, you do something that directly contradicts it. There is no permanent I, only a rotating series of small I's, each stepping forward for a brief time. Each one claims to be you, and yet none of them can be trusted. They pass through like masks worn for different roles, each forgetting what the previous one thought or felt. This is a state that, for most people, passes by unnoticed. If they observe how one I takes over and acts contradictory to another, they usually have an explanation as to why it was perfectly reasonable to change their minds, while in reality, another I simply took over. The fourth way proposes that through deliberate inner work, you can begin to observe these small I's. By seeing them as they arise and pass, you start to create distance from them. This observation allows the formation of something more stable within, a center that is not driven by mood or reaction. It also gives space for essence to begin growing again, now with the help of conscious attention. This process gradually leads to something deeper, real I. But this discovery does not happen automatically. It requires willpower, sincerity, and the courage to look without self-justification. It should be noted that this is not about willpower in the usual sense. It's not about strain or effort, but about going against the discomfort of staying present when the mind wishes to go unconscious and immerse itself in reactive patterns of thinking, acting, and speaking. It is about making this choice again and again every time you notice that the mind is drifting. Real I is not perceived in ordinary life, even though it is the only constant that is present. It cannot be found within the small I's that come and go. It is not one of them, and does not shift from one moment to the next. Real I is stable, conscious, and whole. It is connected to the higher parts of the centers, those aspects of the body, heart, and mind that remain dormant unless awakened. Real I sees clearly, acts deliberately, and is not shaped by external suggestion. It arises from within, not from the world. To reach real I is to become conscious in a way that is no longer mechanical. It is not about adopting a better mask or refining personality. It is about stepping into a quality of presence that has always been possible but rarely accessed. Here, the fourth way provides an excellent diagnosis of our condition, but the solution is limited. How so? From where we stand today, we can understand that everything that is true and in alignment with our true nature stems from our connection with real I, or infinite consciousness. Everything that is out of alignment with infinite consciousness needs, at one point or another, to be let go of. Our egos won't like this fact, and will therefore try to go against it, struggle, and try to find all kinds of explanations as to why the ego should have its way in just this or that particular instant. But it's all illusory. When you have this as the foundation of your work, you will have a much clearer perspective on everything else that you choose to engage in as you climb the ladder from ego consciousness to infinite consciousness, or from personality to real I. We can split hairs, argue about words, and get lost in complex teachings all we want, which is one of the favorite games of the ego. But in the end, this is what it comes down to. And for our practice to have its proper place, it needs to be viewed with this foundation in mind. It is highly ironic that when we start to experience glimpses of infinite consciousness, we begin to see that it has been with us all along. That nothing had to be attained, and that it's just about a shift in perception. But it is a shift in perception that means everything, and even though it can happen in an instant, very few get there without lots of struggling. This cannot really be expressed adequately in words, as there are many paradoxes here. It's not the struggles themselves that lead to this state, and in the end, it is something that happens purely by grace. So, therefore, we have, in one sense, already arrived at the destination before taking the journey. But without the journey, we would still not realize the destination. When you are a direct expression of real I into the world, truth flows through you unfiltered. Your words and actions are not determined by past conditioning or wishes for things to be different in the present moment, or from a wish to be anything in particular in the eyes of others, but stem directly from your oneness with infinite consciousness. This leads us nicely into the next section. The movement toward real I begins with understanding that most of what you take to be yourself is mechanical. It is a repetition of unexamined thoughts, reactive emotions, and familiar routines. All of this is personality. The first requirement is to study yourself, not philosophically, but practically. This means noticing how you behave alone, how you shift when others are present, how roles are adopted without question. It means seeing when you pretend, when you repeat phrases that aren't true for you, and when you act from a desire to be seen a certain way. The work starts here, not with an ideal version of the self, but with the self that actually functions day by day. Between personality and real I lies the slow process of awakening. This involves learning not to identify with the passing eyes. It means seeing personality without merging with it, allowing it to become passive so that essence can become active. In this reversal, what was once at the center is moved to the side, and what was buried beneath layers of adaptation begins to breathe again. The outer voice becomes quieter, so the inner one can begin to speak. But that voice cannot be heard while the personality continues to interrupt, assert, and perform. Essence that grows under conscious direction becomes capable of relating to real I. This growth is not a return to childhood or innocence. It is a conscious maturity, a movement toward integration. Real I cannot be taught. It cannot be described fully in language. It must be found through verification. Its appearance marks a shift in being. You become more whole. You become more consistent. You begin to respond instead of reacting. And this is not just a change in behavior. It is a change in how you experience yourself in life. When you act from essence, time dissolves. Every true connection, human or cosmic, recognizes essence first. Essence doesn't need to be built, only uncovered. And once it begins to move freely again, it calls real I forth, not as an idea, but as lived presence. Without this work, one remains in a mechanical state, a machine made of habits, impressions, and impulses. This is what the system calls sleep. It is not simply unconsciousness, but a kind of passive existence. You are moved by forces you do not see, and yet you believe yourself to be choosing. You are driven by old memories, by roles learned long ago, by automatic patterns, but you are not present in them. The goal is not to destroy personality. In itself, personality is a necessary tool. It helps you function in the world, speak with others, and carry out tasks. But personality must not rule. When it rules, it becomes a parody of truth. It imitates depth, mimics sincerity, and borrows ideas it has never verified. It performs instead of lives. In the work, personality is not the enemy, but it must become quiet. It must learn to serve, not lead. Reflect on this. What does it mean to imitate depth? This can most easily be seen in fancy words that have little to do with lived reality, often with the intent of making the communicator seem wise and insightful, rather than communicating something truly valuable to the recipients. What does mimicking sincerity look like? Again, we come down to empty words. Conversations consisting of words only, with no regard for the actual connection or the participants involved in the exchange. The most common example, albeit a very shallow one, is the simple "How are you?" when the question is asked with no actual interest in the answer. This is not to say that we should stop with this social convention, but it's something to think about. And maybe we could start asking this question with genuine sincerity behind it. Real I is not emotional in the ordinary sense. It does not feel in a reactive way. Its emotional tone is steady, spacious, and clear. It is not a mood, not a high, not a spiritual pose. As already touched upon, it does not seek admiration or attention. It observes without being pulled. It acts without needing applause. It does not identify, it simply is. And when it begins to appear in your life, you can feel the difference. It brings a kind of stillness inside, even in moments of intensity. In the beginning, you will just catch glimpses of real I. But there is a very tangible shift when this happens. You will suddenly feel more real. With time, you will become more and more capable of seeing what is true and acting from it. Not because you have learned the right ideas, but because something in you has awakened that can see directly. Without this connection, all efforts are preliminary. All beliefs are second-hand. All emotions are borrowed. The small eyes will continue to arise. They do not disappear easily. But with practice, they no longer deceive in the same way. You begin to notice them as guests, not as hosts. And through that recognition, something deeper begins to take root. You begin to have a reference point that does not change. In a world of shifting appearances, this constancy is the beginning of freedom. In summary, the fourth way system outlines a path of inner development built on clear distinctions. Essence is your raw, natural core, real but undeveloped. Personality is the outer layer, acquired from external life, useful but misleading when mistaken for the whole. Real I is the conscious, unified self that can emerge through sustained inner work. A self that you, at the deepest level, share with everyone. Fully realized, it is you as a direct, unfiltered manifestation of the infinite consciousness that we are all parts of, like waves on an ocean. The fourth way does not ask you to believe, but to observe, verify, and practice. By seeing yourself without distortion, and by no longer identifying with the false layers, you allow what is true to take its rightful place. This is the path from sleep to presence, from reaction to response, from multiplicity to unity. Something that is important to realize when studying the fourth way is that Gurdjieff and his most well-known successors lived in a different time from ours. He saw a completely different world than we do and drew his conclusions based on that world. It would have been impossible for him to foresee the massive spiritual awakening that is taking place now, or the spiritual knowledge that is available to anyone with a few clicks on a mouse and taps on a keyboard. This is something that we often fail to put into proper perspective. When we observe the spiritual geniuses of the past, we often assume, because of their insights, that every word they say is timeless, and therefore fail to see how much their teachings were colored by the world they saw around them and the students they were addressing. Gurdjieff may also, very likely, have been hurt by his attempts at communicating what he had understood to people, and the dismissal he generally faced when he did so. This may have colored some of his more pessimistic writings, which were later picked up by his students together with everything else that he taught. Thus, the attempt at simplifying the fourth way teachings to make them more accessible in our videos is a conscious choice, in spite of the fact that this was something that Gurdjieff and others advised against. These videos come from a belief that the fourth way holds tremendous value for anyone on a spiritual path, since it deals directly with understanding parts of the human experience that are hidden to most. But this belief also entails an understanding that, for most, this system is too complex and requires a dedication that most people neither can nor want to give to it. We believe that this stance is also reasonable in light of the aforementioned fact that we today have access to so many valuable spiritual teachings that, in spite of their differences, point to some fundamental truths. These are truths such as that we are not who we think we are, the existence of a higher spiritual reality beyond what can normally be perceived with the five senses, that most people are living under the spell of reactivity while thinking they are making free choices, and that we and everything else are all parts of an infinite consciousness, just to name a few important examples. Finally, as you have seen, we have touched upon things that cannot be adequately put into words in this video. We are trying to use language to talk about subjects that move far beyond language, which contain lots of paradoxes, and deal ultimately with a world of direct experience. It is very easy to get lost in words here, which is something that you've probably noticed in spirituality in general. As long as we are communicating in this manner, precision can only be relative, never absolute. This is the nature of verbal language. This speaks to the importance of applying what you learn to your own experiences. If taken as simply an intellectual exercise, the material here will have little effect on you. Therefore, try to look beyond the words in the video and instead to what they are pointing to and where they can meet you exactly where you are on your journey. If you want to delve deeper into self-observation or the different centers as taught in the Fourth Way system, we have videos on both of these topics. We furthermore have a video about the Hindu spiritual philosophy of Advaita Vedanta, where you can gain a deeper understanding of what it means to be part of one single consciousness. All of this is available on the end screen right now. You've now reached the end of the video. Remember to like and subscribe. Thank you for your time.